why are liberals or why are Democrats so bad at messaging on this stuff? And I think that there's almost a kind of a personality characteristic here that conservatives tend to, and George Lakoff talks about this, the strict father model versus the nurturing family model. But I think it's more like, within the GOP in particular, and the conservative movement that emerged more in the 80s, because I don't think this was the case during the Eisenhower era, that there's discipline, there's leadership, and messaging flows from the top down. And the Democratic Party, by and large, particularly because of all the chaos that was created by the adoption of neoliberalism by the Democrats in the 90s, has just been atomized. It's been fractionalized. It's been factionalized.
Right.
So you've got.
Well, let's have a food fight first, and then we'll
well,
work it out
and this group is worried about, I mean, you've got gender issues, you've got racial issues, you've got religious issues, you've got, economic issues, you've got union issues, you've got international issues. And, the GOP would look at all those things and they'd say, okay, let's pick the top three that we can use to beat the crap out of the Democrats. And that's all we're going to talk about. And once we get enough power, we'll do all that other stuff. And the Democrats, on the other hand, say, oh, let's talk about all this stuff. And as a result, the message just, you're pissing into the wind. I mean, the message just gets spattered all over the place.
You just nailed it, Tommy. It's so expertly, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, I've been saying it for the last month or so in a number of the conversations I've had with Democrats. It's like, guys, you're making this way more complicated. You want to know why the Supreme Court is where the Supreme Court is? It's because we focused on it for 25 years. And while you guys were focusing on the policy of abortion, we were just talking about getting the court. We just wanted to animate the base to get the court. Because once you got the court, all these other pieces then fall in place. Chevron falls in place. Campaign finance falls in place. All the other pieces fall in place. So
voting rights.
Voting rights, and for some of us inside the tent, if you will, who have tried to resist that, it became a losing battle after a while, and thus you see the Liz Cheneys and others just being jettisoned out of the party, set aside in big ways that sort of cements this idea. To your point, what you see happening right now under Joe Biden, not a consolidation of the left around the idea of here's a bigger threat than this guy or our policy disputes, so let's focus on that. It is still trying to hammer out a solution or an answer to a policy or other issue that right now the country's like, dude, this guy just sounds stronger than your guy. And if that's where you're going to leave this, you're going to get clobbered in November. And it's interesting that, you had the Heritage president, whom we had on our show The Weekend on MSNBC a couple of weeks ago, Kevin Roberts, who made just this week, on a follow-up to that somewhat controversial interview, noted that right now the country is in, as he put it, the midst of a second American Revolution that will be bloodless. And here's the tagline: if the left allows it to be. How should the left respond to that?
Well, it's a statement that implies violence. And I think that there's a lot of recoiling, a lot of horror in response to that. And even Republicans, I think, are starting to back away from it. I think one of the reasons why Trump just came out and repudiated Project 2025 is because, people are starting to realize how extraordinarily reactionary this is. I mean,
draconian and un-American it is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to the extent that I could characterize Reagan as a reactionary, he had nothing going compared to these guys. These guys want to turn America into Hungary, basically, into something like Putin's.
Viktor Orban is the model. He is the model.
Well, he is, yeah. And I've written and talked about that at length. And this illiberal democracy idea is, I mean, you could argue it's the logical outcome of neoliberalism, of Reaganism, but it will destroy this country. It just absolutely will destroy this country. And if our democracy goes down, I mean, we've already seen about a 15% decrease in the number of human beings on Earth who live in democratic countries just over the last 2 decades. You know, that Francis Fukuyama back in, what was it, 97, you know, wrote The End of History and The Last Man. You know, everybody's going to become democratic now. And no, it's
not so much.
The rich people stepped in there and said, no, we're going to take it.
No, there's no money in that. There's no money in that.
Exactly.